Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Leadership Speak series at L Forum. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with a young, vibrant entrepreneur, Anirban Bhattacharya, aka Andy Bhattacharya, co founder, CEO of Amplo Global. I've known Andy for a long time now, and I've seen him evolve into from being a senior business consultant to an entrepreneur. So it's best that he describes his journey as an entrepreneur and how he got to start Amplo Global and be part of this industrial fourth generation uh, revolution. So over to him before I make any more goof ups on this. So over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Ringo. First of all, it's a pleasure to have me in the session with you. It's like really very nostalgic for me. So a little bit of my background. First, I will start with my mind share that I have always believed in is rebel, global, innovator. Rebel, global, uh, innovation rather. They're all three nouns. And I will explain my journey of life in these three core words. Rebel being I've always questioned the norms. That something has worked for me and has not worked for me. It's both the scenarios. Global being I've been global thanks to my parents. Always been born and like on brought up in a global mindshare. I still remember the time when Michael Jackson came to India in 1991 or 1990. I was in school and I had a fight with my dad to go and watch him in Bombay, and and I've been a very hardcore Celtic music fan, and then followed alternate rock, got into U2, the Coldplay and others. So very much global feeling. I actually did not have a cultural shock when I came to the States from India. And the third thing that I will say is always try to maintain a framework. We always talk about continuous improvement framework, continuous engineering framework. Nothing happens without engineering, right? But I always also believed in continuous innovation framework, and that has also got into my head. And wherever I am today, wherever I would like to go in future, this whole these three nouns have really helped me: rebel, global, and innovation. So my background has been mainly in management consulting of the first 18 plus years of my career with 2 years of MBA in between. I'm an engineer. And then in the last three and a half years, while I was in my last job, I actually invented a product which is very much in the space of strategy and operations. It does uh, basically business initiative simulation before you actually launch the program and spend N millions of dollars. We actually do a risk calculation. We basically a risk management outcome-based company. And of course, once the initiative is done, you can come back and do a optimization on that avatar of that initiative. And we really handshake from continuous innovation framework to continuous improvement framework, continuous engineering framework. So, Ringo, before I hand over to you for the next set of discussions, I would say that in my life, uh, my stats or overall stats have never added up. There's a saying with my portfolio, and when four folks are speeding in the freeway, if one person gets the ticket, that's me. That's my life. How do you meander this when you know that Murphy's law will always work for you? Been a And I feel lucky for that, because what I have done in the last many years of grooming myself, I call it life 1.0, which is over. My life 2.0 has started. I have always tried to be on ground, always being on reality check. I have flown a little bit sometimes in my life, but I always came back, and sometimes situations have put me back on the ground too. But overall, I would say that immense learning. Learning is continuous for me. And that's where, from leaving corporate to having an entrepreneurship journey in the last 3.5 years, has been tremendous, I would say. I will leave it there for now.
Very interesting. It's a very interesting take on life that you're a constant pick on Murphy's Law, and that's I think that's the first I've heard, and that's very modest of you, I'm sure, because your accomplishments as a management consultant and your academic achievements are pretty solid. So you did beat the Murphy's laws a few times, I'm sure, to have got so far. So
So
many
nice.
congratulations on that, and I wish you all the very best that you beat Murphy's law many more times in the future as well. So,
Thank you.
I'm sure when you said this, and I was kind of reflecting when you were sharing your background, what has been your journey as a leader in these almost 2 decades of work experience? What has been your journey? How would you kind of categorize or define your journey as a leader? And then now that you're now an entrepreneur and you're leading your own organization, how would
Absolutely.
you describe it?
To be a leader, there are four pillars you have to build yourself first. And I will give explanations or examples to each of those pillars. Trust. Trust yourself, and trust uh, like a group of people who would believe in you. Second is faith. Little different than trust, where you have a faith that this is going to work without the people aspect. I'm calling trust is with the people aspect. Faith is with other people aspect. The third thing is have the appetite to take risk. At the same time, quickly calculate the risk in your head, left brain and right brain, balancing it out. And the fourth one I would say is the vision you have is how much is legitimate, and really from innovation to delivery, that vision works. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, a great vision can be nothing without execution. So keeping these four pillars, when I was gaining experiences in the corporate world, and of course, in the last 3.5 years, have been tremendous learning. My leadership has always been like executed on some principles. The first principle is always take the face value, trust, and see that that's working. Suppose somebody says to me, Andy, you know what? I think I'm going to close this deal, and I need you to fly in, have a 15 minutes like a spiel on Amplo Global, then rest is mine. I will, so when somebody's saying that to me, I will take that as a word, and I will trust that person, and I will exactly execute that. So the trust bucket. So now, of course, we may not win the deal. That situation may get a little rocky. The second thing I apply as a principle is giving chances. So my leadership is chances. So first is the face value that, yep, I trust the situation. We will go after this plan. Doesn't work, chance, works, very good. The third thing is that on my leadership, I also bring a lot of collaborative leadership, which means that, and it sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work, and that's where you make the call rightly. How long you will take to make a decision after listening to everyone. Some people would be very strong in their opinion and they would quickly make a decision. I don't do that. I'm much more in the collaborative house, but that also has come back to me where I have to hear that um, why you can't make this decision faster than ever, right? I mean, you should make this decision quickly. But in my back of my mind, I have a deadline before which I would not make the decision or I will make the decision. I have a deadline. So it's not obvious. It doesn't come out with the people around me that, oh, it's too collaborative. It's like he's a little bit on the weaker side, right? I always have to deal that on the collaborative part. The last one I would mention is on, and I think this leadership, I have also improved. I've worked on it. I failed. I also, again, worked on it, is how to work with ordinary people and have an extraordinary organization. That is a very subtle leadership that you have to believe in, especially being an entrepreneur, when we are every day, we are checking the balance sheet and seeing that whom we can pay, whom we cannot pay. That's also an important decision to make that. Very humbly, I will share this. Not everybody has to be an A player in our organization. You know that as a leader, and you know that to crack the code on this particular deal or this delivery, I know I'm sending a average person, and to help him or her to become above average, which I believe in everyone can be, how do you bring your thought leadership in the mix? So make an organization with ordinary people to an extraordinary achievement. I believe in these principles, and it has worked for me. So to summarize, of course, face value trust, get things done, believe in chances, being collaborative, and last but not the least, have an acumen to really work on extraordinary achievements with ordinary people. That's a very important appetite for, especially for an entrepreneurial leadership. I'll leave it there for now. I can talk more, but we'll have more discussions, obviously.
Absolutely, and I think I resonate very well with this whole collaborative piece because at some level, as an entrepreneur, you are like a conductor of an orchestra, or you have so many moving parts, and you cannot have anything out of symphony. Everything has to come together for it to sound melodious, right? So that's what, and most times when you cannot manage a few of those, that's when entrepreneurial organizations, in my humble opinion, have challenges. So yeah, so I think you kind of helped me start into my next question, which you kind of alluded to the concept of entrepreneurial leadership. That's something I am very intrigued by. So you're an entrepreneur who's also a leader. So how has the differences been being a management consultant? I'm sure as a leader you had the expectations were different, and now as an entrepreneur and a leader, I'm assuming there are differences. Can you kind of share your experience in what nuances or differences were there as a corporate leader or in a management consulting space, and now being an entrepreneurial leader? Are there differences, or is it same? Or if there are differences, what are they?
Fantastic question, Ringo. I will start with a metaphor or an analogy here. The metaphor or the analogy I will give you here is that corporate consulting or corporate leadership or corporate roles that I have played, that's taking a bath in a bathroom in closed doors, right? I'm backed up by lawyers, by running backs, quarterback on the bench, sideline coaches. Cracking a code in that environment may be a little easier. Not easy at all. Nothing is easy, by the way. Easier because you know that you have a technique, you have a culture of the organization where you have to follow, and you have leads coming in. You know the business has to get closed. You will execute on the business. If it's a success, you get more business. It's a whole circularity. Entrepreneurship leadership is you're taking a bath in an open air, and you know when you take a bath you're exposed. That's the metaphor is there, right? And why open air? Because A, you know you're being watched. B, sometimes you have to open your eyes and take the shower, or sometimes you have to close the eyes and take the shower. One constant thing is that everybody's watching you. So what's the summary here? The summary is, how do you take the heat being a leader? How do you get exposed on your vulnerability? Okay, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. And how do you take those learnings and quickly come back and create a closed loop performance improvement plan within yourself? Okay, so that next time you perform better. So that's it. I mean, it's like that shower example I found, or I was thinking about this, how to answer your question. I thought that was the best analogy for the audiences who would listen to this. Because entrepreneurial leadership is absolutely a tough nut to crack. That is not for everyone. And I will pass this message, Ringo, to all the audiences here is, don't feel bad if you're not an entrepreneurial leader. If you're a corporate leader or leader, something that you're discovering yourself, you know the purpose of your life. Sometimes you don't need to know the purpose of your life. But entrepreneurial leadership is totally a different ballgame. It needs a mind share where every day you wake up in the morning and you put your feet on the carpet, or if you have wood in the house, right, or carpet, you will write 3 things down. And when you go to bed, even one is achieved, you should be a happy camper. So I will leave it there for now and love more.
No, that's very beautifully answered, and I think because in the audiences we have young management students, you have young entrepreneurs, seasoned entrepreneurs. So I'm sure some will resonate and agree with you, and some will find it interesting, very insightful. Yes, and that's why we have this forum, Andy, to bring in various points of view, because any number of views of the same thing is not enough. Is my in my mind, you cannot describe anything completely in this planet on this planet, because there's always a new view, a new nuance, a new approach to something, which kind of throws a completely different approach or a perspective on that thing, right? So I welcome every new nuance or approach because it widens my knowledge base too, selfishly. So having said that, it seems like you've had a very interesting ride. So I'm going to stick to your 3.5 year journey as an entrepreneurial leader, and I would like you to share with us what have been your top challenges.
Absolutely, Ringo. So the first thing that comes in my mind, that when you're experimenting something, who will stay with you? And when you're experimenting something, how can you pay them? Because experiments cost money. It's a cost that you have to absorb, because that experiment, you may not get the money back from the client because it may fail. When I say experiment, I will give an example of Amplo Global Inc. So we have a few ways to go to market. Sometimes, so the platform is, we sell licenses-based selling. We do accelerated based one-time consulting service, or we just position a data lake strategy that we will build upstream so that the strategists can do some analytics without our platform, which is embraces service deal, which we don't go so loud because it's not a leverage for the investors. So in all these go-to-market models, these are experiments that we are doing at the end of the day. Some people will enjoy this journey. There have been some delays in the payments. Some people have made a lot of noise. Some people have left me. Some people have stayed back. The best part of this is, Ringo, in every relationship, when I'm doing the experiment, sitting at the top and directing, bringing the vision, every human interaction has taught me a lesson. So the challenge always has an opportunity. The second challenge that I will talk about is kind of 1A and 1B there, is how do you manage your finance? I will be honest to you. I not always have done a great job. I work with my CFO and have made some wrong calls. And when my hands were slapped, I realized that I shouldn't have done it. So how do you recover from it? That's another challenge that I bring to the table. I'm not answering the challenge with an example because I would love to hear audiences also ask me more questions later on. Something being left for the audience to come back with. The third challenge that I will say is, if you're a startup company leader, are you just a startup company, or you're also a disruptor in the startup space, or in that space that you're going after? If you're a disruptor, then the biggest challenge that you will face is the category creation of your product line. Because CXOs of the world, or VPs of the world, or the senior directors of the world, if the category is not created, they'll love to be the second mover to adapt that, right? So category creation, as soon as you work with an analyst firm or you do a few blogs, that is something is a big challenge, because moving the needle on the mother planet, on something, a change like strategic change, how a CXO thinks about risk mitigation strategy, what we do is a huge challenge to create that category. Ultimately, Ringo, the way I would say at the end of the day is all these challenges are actually at the end are people related. So identifying the right team members, identifying the right players, identifying the right appetite of those players, having constant communication, which I've also always improve every day, because I think I miss sometimes, I do a good job sometimes. And how you being you means me being me as an entrepreneurial leader, because I have a fundamental DNA of my thinking power. How much you are ready to change, accept the mistakes, and move on is also a way to resolve the challenges. So it's all, I think 80% of the challenge is human interaction challenge. 20% of the challenge is the intellectual challenge. That's where my learning in the last 3.5 years is.
Yeah, I guess people, right, all the time. And so, kind of building on that point you made, Andy, on human interaction. Uh, if you kind of dive a little deeper on that, is there any insights that you could share with this group in terms of human interaction? Would you categorize them as the kind of challenges you've faced within the human
Absolutely.
interaction?
I will be very honest to you, right? In the last 3.5 years, there are three major exits from Amplo Global. And I know this is a vulnerable Andy speaking, and I love to get the fresh entrepreneurs to learn from this vulnerability. Those three exits are all different, right? One for misunderstanding. The second one was a very weird, calm exit, whom I trusted the most, face value trust. And the third one was a money issue, like a money challenge, I think. So these three exits have really costed Amplo Global's growth. Really costed. They're extremely sharp people, all the three folks who have left. Now, what do you do with this? How do you manage to live after that? How do you create that continuum strategy after that? One thing I learned, and if Ringo, you're okay with this, if I would like to give a solution strategy behind this answer, is that okay?
Absolutely, go ahead.
One thing that I've learned, A, no one is indispensable. Number two, or B, is you quickly, how nimble and flexible you are to change your strategy, still keeping the overall vision, is key. Because you have to shift, because somebody who was holding a strong baton for you that person leaves, then how do you manage to run through it, right? Do not spend time on correcting the past and misunderstandings. That will not go in one night, one day. It will go as you give it time. So I tried with all the three leaders to come back and try to rectify the situations. Did not work. What I learned is, A, as I mentioned, is how do you meander your plan, keeping the broad vision in mind? B, do not try to straighten the tail of the dog. It will still be curly. Give it time to the relationships. And the last thing is very important. That learning you got from that, you quickly implement that within the organization so that that history doesn't repeat. Now, what happens is people are people. It doesn't mean that I would not get those characteristics in future and I would not be in those situations. I would be. But it is very important that by that time, you have a recipe to respond to that situation, which I did not have before. And that recipe can only come with your self-valuation. Self-valuation. That why that interaction happened and how it had costed Amplo Global's vision and growth, and how you cannot repeat this. And it's a continuous process improvement. So now today, I will tell you, we are starting 2022 with a bang. We have a tremendous pipeline. We have decent logos now. MRRs coming in, monthly rate of revenue coming in. And we have a decent plan for 2022. Our CFO worked very hard with me on this one. We have a decent support system, and we have stabilized our product. We have good relationships with the vendors, and we have good relationships with the forward distributors who are basically distributing the product in India and US. And we are really improving every day as we are growing. So I'll just leave it there for now.
Excellent. That's very, very heartening to hear, and thank you so much for candidly sharing your organization's personal challenges. I'm sure many will find it helpful, and many might even relate to what you're saying. So, so I guess you did help in my kind of answering part of my last question for today's session. Is what suggestions and advice would you give to young managers or even senior managers, entrepreneurs, young or old? What would your few suggestions be?
Absolutely, Ringo. And Ringo, we talked about this a few weeks or a couple of weeks back, that what's the average time horizon to take off in any disruptive concept? And we both learned, I mean, you have a PhD in leadership. I mean, I have burnt my own fingers and arms and legs. I think in any disruptive concept, plan for 5 to 7 years, which means you believe in it. What do you have to do? You always have to check your balance sheet and know that what's your minimalistic people support you need, where you'll get the people support, and how you'll keep going. So that's a lead time you have to keep in mind. Nothing will happen in one night. And it's a continuous learning. Number 2 advice that I would like to give to all the entrepreneurs is, while you're doing that, some days will be absolutely ridiculously bad. Some days will be average. Some days you will feel that you're a winner. Have a very equanimous mind. Do not celebrate and do not cry. Now, of course, you celebrate and also you cry, but you get the message, right? You keep that equanimous mindset to make sure that you are real. The third thing that I will mention is, while we talked about the timeline, we talked about the equanimous mind share, absolutely be ready to coexist while you're disrupting too. Because remember, you may be thinking 2030, you may be thinking 2025, but your revenue will not come when you're thinking 2030. Your revenue will come from the current days. I call it Carpadium. That's my tagline, by the way, in my WhatsApp. So, which means that today you have to coexist. My risk management software has to coexist with SAP, Oracle, Hyperion downstream. We have to coexist with integration styles with other platforms who do risk management. We do differently, they do differently, right? So the balance between disruption and coexistence is very critical for an entrepreneurial journey. I will just leave it there for now, Ringo.
Excellent, Andy. I agree that one has to be realistic as well as dream, dare to dream, as they say. So yes, I think all of your insights and all of your inputs that you gave us, um, very exciting. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing your views. And I'm hoping that you will actively participate in the oncoming uh, plans that we have for the L Forum, and we do have very exciting plans. We want to bring leaders like yourselves to share insights and maybe join us for other activities as well. So I wish you and Amplo Global all the very best. Wish you all success,
Absolutely.
and
Thank you, Ringo.
we'll be in touch absolutely. So thank you, Andy. Have a great day.
Yeah, happy holidays.
Thank you. Wish you the same.